Hi, everyone. Oh, okay. I'm using StreamYard for the first time. So, yes, I can show comments. Hi, Nick. Hey, Legion. Hey, Celistamon. Jason. Oh, you're cooking a breakfast burrito? I love that. I had my breakfast this morning already. I had an omelet. It was delicious. How's everyone's morning going? Hey, SCC. I'm so excited for today. I have a couple of new comics that came in the mail. I went to my local comic shop, which I wasn't planning on doing until next week. And then I have some comics that I'm just really enjoying that I can't wait to kind of dive in and then get all your comments on and see what you guys think if you've read them. So I'll wait a minute or two to let people jump in. Tell me what you've been reading this week, though, in the chat box. I'm curious. Hey, Remy, Q Studios. Hey. Also, if anyone's in the chat, I was on Remy Q Studios this past Wednesday for Let's Talk About It with Cardboard Crazies, and it was such a blast. I laughed my ass off the entire time. So give that a watch if you can. It's a fun show. And you learn a little bit more about my hobbies. Hey, Comics vs. the World. I'm only half watching my little boys watching Spider-Man cartoons, though Spider-Man cartoons are really entertaining, so that definitely rivals my live. Hey, Whack Comics. Ooh, Jason, you said you're reading Inferno. I'm not there yet, but I picked Inferno up. I couldn't resist. Iman, you're saying I'm still behind, still trying to catch up on 2 weeks worth. I feel like trying to catch up on months worth of comics at this point. SCC, I've been reading Vinland's Saga, but plan to squeeze in some Halloween type books in for the month. Same. I'm going to start Stray Dogs because I got the trade paperback, and I'm going to change. There we go. I'm going to change this whole bookshelf to show just like spooky books, Halloween books, and comics. So that way it just makes it feel more like fall and Halloween. But right now I changed it to have the Rian Gonzalez Win tarot covers. I'm not sure if, let me see, people can see. They're gorgeous. What Halloween comics or like Halloween-esque comics or books is anyone planning to read, if any, if you're into the season? I want to pick up Autumnal, the trade paperback. I picked up a copy of Witches, and I started reading Nice House on the Lake, which was really good. I haven't read past issue 1, though, so I need to kind of dig a little bit deeper. There's a ton to catch up on the X universe, Jason. I'm like still trying to make it through like the way beginning. Comics vs. the World. My recent reads are Paper Girls and Spider-Man's Life Story. How is Spider-Man's Life Story? I have like never read Spider-Man, period. Like ever. And everyone really loves Spider-Man. And I think he's a great character, but I've only ever like watched the movies. Paper Girls is really good. That was one of the first comics like in college I started reading. Oh, Witches and Autumnal are amazing. I can never pronounce Autumnal. Well, there you go. All right, I'm going to start by showing off some of my recent picks that I got from my local comic shop this week. I picked up the first issue of Magic. So I've never played Magic the Gathering. I don't know if anyone has, but I really like fantasy, and I just figured at this point I should give this a go, and the art looked really, really cool. So let me show you. Like, that just looks really badass. So I'm excited. I don't really know what to expect. I actually don't know like anything about Magic. Even the like card game, like I remember seeing it around when I was a kid. Okay, so I said I didn't read Spider-Man, and then I picked up The Amazing Spider-Man, mostly just because it had the Peach Momoko cover. So it's absolutely beautiful. And so I'm probably going to read this issue and have like the little bit of context that they provide in the beginning and see what I think. Is anyone reading this run at all? Let me know your thoughts. I don't play Magic, but the comic is fantastic, Amon. That is good to know. I am excited. The characters look really interesting in terms of like the fantasy aspect of it. So I'm really excited. Whack Comics, that's a nice feature. It is. I love anything floral. I mean, I have a rose tattoo on my finger right here, and then I have another one over here. So I'm a little obsessed with floral designs. So that's why I really love it. SEC, yep. It's a great cover. Then, like I said, Inferno. I'm going to take it out of the bag. Got the Peach Momoko cover, which I don't think is surprising to anyone at this point. If you've watched or read or seen any of my Instagram posts or any of the videos, I love her and her artwork. So I was excited to pick up this issue. They had a really, like, just some really awesome variants across the board for Inferno, but I'm trying to not get sucked into buying multiple variants. I don't know how all of you feel about variants and buying multiple of the same issue, but I need to like calm down on doing that. Then jumping back into the kind of like X-Men, I picked up some back issues. These are not necessarily new. I picked up Wolverine for the Hellfire Gala with Deadpool on the cover. I love it. Whack Comics, I'm not a fan of that one. Peach can be hit or miss for me. Understandable. I feel like her artwork is very distinct, and there's some that I haven't also loved, but for the most part, a lot of what she does, I'm a huge fan of. Jason, I had to scoop the Brooks and decal variants for Inferno. Are one of those variants like the cover is like Mystique? Because that was gorgeous. And then, well, I really feel like this should just be called the Peach Momoko Comics Live show. So, because I'm about to show you another one. The issue of X-Men #1, also love so much. They didn't have it at my local comic shop, but they were able to order it, which was exciting. And then it just popped up in my pull box. I honestly forgot I asked for it, and I was like, oh, thanks. Basically, I'm picking up back issues of X-Men so that way I catch up. I'm reading it because I should be catching up pretty soon. X-Men #2. Jason, that was Artgerm for Mystique. Decal was Emma Frost, and the Brooks was like everyone. Oh, okay. Yes, I know exactly which ones. Those are the one that had everyone on it. The Brooks looked really badass. Again, had to like refrain from buying it because I don't need more issues of the same comic. And then the trading card variant for X-Men 3 Marvel Girl. What's really cool is like the backs where it says like the subject, height, group affiliation, first appearance, and then it gives energy projections, mental powers, strength, fighting ability, intelligence. Okay, can we just talk about like intelligence is just like none? Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even realize that. What are some of your favorite comics that you picked up this week, if you did pick up any? And then I got a order in from City Comics, which is in Detroit. I picked up, this is a cover by 100%. X-Men Gold. I love how it shows everyone, and it's like for the wedding. So my little romantic heart was like, this is really cute. I'm here for the love on this cover. And then Remy Kisu is very powerful, but intelligent, not so much. Yeah, they threw her under the bus on that trading card variant, which I find hilarious. Then I'm not sure if everyone here has seen, but maybe I'm sure if you're watching this live, you have V from Read Across the Stars and I are going to be reading the Marvel Zombies, and we're starting that next week. And so I'm reading it all on Marvel Unlimited just because I wasn't going to be able to find everything, and that's okay. But one thing I did have to pick up was the Marvel Zombies Resurrection Rian Gonzalez variant, because it's the cutest thing ever. I mean, Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel. I mean, I love this cover so much. I'm going to display this probably on my one of my comic long boxes, especially like for the month of October. Whack Comics, I went back to get all the covers for Primordial Maze Book 1 because I love them both, and I'm a sucker for everything Lemire. Primordial, I bought it for my boyfriend. I haven't read it, but everyone who's read it has said it's really amazing, so I need to just pick it up and read it. I haven't read Maze Book, though I've heard really good things. I don't think I'll be picking it up because it just doesn't seem like something I'm particularly drawn to, but I've heard, again, really great things. Hey, Carlito Classico, Deathstroke Inc. and Legion of Comics sent me Nice House on the Lake. That was really good. I loved the twist at the end. So I definitely want to keep reading it. I just have to actually pick up the issues, or I'm not sure if it's in trade paperback form yet. Jason, can't wait for the Marvel Zombies. Me too. Again, the What If episode was living rent-free in our minds. So we just kept bringing up or sending little GIFs to each other from the episode, and it was just so good. If you've watched that episode, let me know also what you think. I absolutely loved it. And I mean, I guess kind of spoiler if you haven't seen it, just a heads up. I'm just always really sad that in any universe, Vision and Scarlet Witch just don't get to be happy. And they're always in love though, which makes me happy, but then also the tragedy strikes. Maze Book is good if you like to be sad. So I do like to be sad, so I guess maybe I should put it on a recommend. I've written down most of your guys' recommendations, and I have it in a little notebook, so that way as I get through some of the things that I've already bought, because I could get in that loop of constantly purchasing things, I'll definitely add it. Jeff Celeste Amon, Jeff Lemire, and Adriana Sorrentino are fantastic combo. Primordial is a good start. Gideon Falls is a great horror to check it out. So I actually have a previews issue of Gideon Falls. So that's one of the comics I'm going to put up back here for my October reads, and I'm going to dive into it. Jason says, can't go wrong with Lemire. All right. So those are all of the new comics. I picked up Echolands 2, and I kind of wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this one with all of y'all. Has anyone in the chat read Echolands? Because I think it's fantastic and really original. What my first impression of it was that the art is incredibly weird, really beautiful, and also has a lot of gory violence, especially in the first issue. But what I found really fascinating was that in terms of the art, you're seeing him draw. The artist is, I think, J.H. Williams the third, is if I'm reading that correctly. He's giving you different artistic styles for the characters and for certain things in the settings, which I was really, really impressed by. So let me see if I could pull up something just to kind of show you that wouldn't be a spoiler. Okay, yeah. So in the first page, I'm going to show you guys. Ooh. I'm how do I? It's all backwards for me. Here we go. So in this panel right here, you're seeing different variations of like artistic styles for the characters, which I found like some are more realistic, some are more cartoony, some are in black and white. And I was just really intrigued by that in terms of it setting up the world building, like if that was going to like continue even with with Hope. So sorry for anyone who hasn't like actually read Echolands. Let me give you a brief breakdown of it. So there is this woman, Hope, who kind of resembles this idea of like Red Riding Hood, and or at least that's like what she feels most familiar as, even though she's like not, she's like way more complex than like a Red Riding Hood character. And she steals this gem like right in the beginning and is getting chased by there is this man known as the Wizard who rules the land or wherever they're situated. I'm not sure if it's like a country or world or whatever the case, like that's not clear yet. And she is fleeing them and she meets up with her team, who is like this like group of misfits in a way. And they're also, how they're drawn are really interesting. They're kind of like callbacks to like horrors, Westerns, like mythology, and then sci-fi as well. You're getting characters who feel like aliens, some who are vampires, and they're all drawn in these different kind of forms. So again, it's this familiarity, but it all feels very new. And so they're trying to, again, flee the city, flee from the wizards, what they call like their death dogs. And it kind of takes from there. And so that is really fun. But what I thought was even more clever was you kind of end the comic early, and then you're hit with, this is not a spoiler, this page where there's this fortune teller that is an alien that basically lets you know what's going to kind of happen in the second issue, which I found to be a really creative way, instead of being like, what will happen next? Or, and it's not like a clear sense of the plot. It's that the fortune teller is like, I see waves, I see the sea. And so that was really cool. And then you also get The Echo, which is essentially a newspaper within the universe. And it has an interview with the wizard, the man who is kind of controlling this land. And that gave it a feel of like the epistolary kind of feeling that if you were to read in a book, like maybe, you know, with written letters. And I honestly love any comic that gives you a different way of feeding information about the universe. So like I know I constantly reference this, but like House of X, Power of X, you have like the files where you're like slowly being able to piece certain things together. Or even in Demon Days for Peach Momoko at the end, there are I think Yukari files, which give you history, like legitimate history on what she's drawing her inspiration from. And it gives you more background to, it gives you more information on how to appreciate the universe. And so things like that just kind of expand it without it just falling into the typical kind of comic, like dialogue and the art behind it. So I felt like that was really, really creative. So I was excited for the second one, which I picked up. And also, again, the world building is fantastic. Remiki Studios Fortune Teller equal The Watcher in a way, because like you're getting these clues, and you're like, okay, well, what's going to happen next? And it's almost kind of told in like a riddle in a way. See, listen, man, I skipped Echolands. I may go back to get it. Anyone else like in the series so far? Well, I am. I don't know if anyone else in the chat has read it and is enjoying it, but I think it's really amazing. And the paneling for it on a landscape is really, really good. I think at sometimes like you have to pay attention. You have to like sit with it, because the way that it flows is really can be open-ended with how the art is. I'll show a panel. So it's not just like straight blocks. And then in terms of the world building, I really appreciate that there's so much like mythology, fairy tales, but also like our real world. Like San Francisco is real, but Treasure Island is also real. So again, like they're building this universe that is so expansive, and you kind of don't know like where is it going to go? What are the limits and the boundaries of this universe if they're kind of really bringing everything in? There's this place called like Horror Hill where there's like vampires, and so I'm assuming like is there Frankenstein? Is there, you know, those things? Adrian Panda, awesome. What up? Whack Comics. Landscape comics can be really annoying to read. I might have to give it a try, though. I've never read another landscape comic. This is my first experience with a landscape comic, and I really, really, really loved it. I'm on, oh man, San Francisco. This is set in the Bay Area. Okay, I need to jump on it. Yeah, there's, there's like a scene where they're talking about San Francisco, so I recommend it. Jason, I like when comics do something different in regards to layout. So do I. I say that, and this is like my first experience with a comic doing something different with a layout. If you guys have any recommendations for comics doing different things with layout, let me know, because I find that to be really fascinating. And I like when like a writer, an artist, or can kind of like push you to think differently about what you're reading, even if it's in the way of the layout and design. So Remiki Studios, wait, Treasure Island is not real. I mean, I'm sorry to break it to you. I don't think it's real. But in Echolands, it's real, which is why you should pick it up. Come on, no treasure on Treasure Island. Lots of three-eyed fish and forever glow sticks though everywhere. Panda, awesome. Don't let anyone tell you Treasure Island is real. Jason, well, Gideon Falls is not landscape, but Sorrentino really pushes what a comic can be. All right, this is like letting me know what I need to read. I need to just jump on it, especially because I actually have it. Yeah, so all of that is to say, I highly, highly recommend Echolands. I feel like it's doing something different in terms of the storytelling. I feel like you can have a lot of writers who draw on fairy tales or mythology, and it just feels unoriginal because it feels like a retelling, or it feels like they're not playing with the tropes enough. They're not making them subversive. And so I will read oftentimes anything that has like a callback to like a fairy tale or mythology, because that's like my jam, and then just be incredibly disappointed where it just feels like, okay, you kind of copy and pasted this story, but you didn't do anything new or different with it. And so I really feel like what they're doing here is they're bringing those ideas and tropes in, but nothing is what it seems. Like even the fact that like Hope looks like Red Riding Hood, and her beginning origin even sounds a little bit like the fairy tale. She's so drastically different as a character than like what you would assume that story to be. And then Whack Comics, I second Jason. Okay, so Gideon Falls is just moving up slowly on my to be read list. Hey there. Black 6371, Andrea and Sorrentino did Old Man Logan, and it's phenomenal. What is Old Man Logan? I haven't heard. I'm assuming it has to do with maybe Wolverine. Whack Comics. Sorrentino's just really good at doing that with whatever book they're on. Okay, I need to look into her. I'm not sure if I've really read anything with her attached to the team, but I'm not that I'm aware of. Or maybe I have, and I need to get better at also like remembering the writers and artists that are attached to comics. Like I'll just pick things up and read them, and then not really like look at, focus too much on who it is unless I'm obsessed with it. The other book I wanted to dive into, which I feel like a lot of people have recommended the writer, is James Tiernan. God, the fourth for Wind. it's the Wolverine Legion of Comics. It's the Wolverine's version of the Dark Knight Returns. Okay, that seems like really high. I mean, Dark Knight Returns haven't read it. I've watched Dark Knight. So if the comic is anything like the movie, I guess, then it sounds really good. Okay, is anyone here Red Wind? Aman, I love Wind. It's one of my favorites. I got my 11-year-old daughter to read this one. Okay, it's so amazing. And I feel like, okay, so I know that it's like, it got really popular, but I don't feel like I've heard enough people talk about it. Legion of Comics, I've not read it. It's so good. I feel like it is for a specific kind of reader in a way, or you have to be really open to, I think something that's like fantasy, feels a little bit lighter on the surface, but has so much depth to it, which, again, this writer is someone that's, I feel a lot of you have recommended to me, but for different comics that he's written on. And I mean, I just want to appreciate the art too. Let me grab a good panel. I mean, all of the panels are good, but it's super colorful and really beautiful. And so Panda Awesome, I haven't read it yet. Whack Comics, my co-host Tyler loved Wind. Yeah, what I loved about, there was many things I loved about it. On the surface, like when you first enter the world in the comics, it feels, again, really lighthearted, and you kind of almost are anticipating a lighter fantasy. And it goes into deeper conversations about, there's Wind, who has magic abilities, and he lives in this essentially kingdom that is committing genocide against anyone who has magic abilities, essentially. And so he's been hidden his entire life, and there's reached a point where he has to flee, and there is a group of people who help him flee. And there's this kind of self-erasure that Wind is like begging for. He doesn't want to be magical. His ears are pointy, which reflect that he's magic. And he is like searching for a way to change himself. Like there's even this, again, it's very like the way that it's drawn, it feels very like light and not necessarily happy, but he goes to this like underground tunnel where he thinks that he can have someone change him. And it's where they would have to like remove his like blood and like put in like normal blood so that he can change like who he is. And that's just like kind of really horrific and like really sad. And it's what like essentially like his journey to like self-acceptance. And it's really, really great. And what I love about the cast of characters is that there's so much diversity and inclusion in terms of definitely like the LGBTQ community. There's like transgender, like non-binary. It's very fluid in terms of the like sexualities and identities. And what is even better is that they kind of just simply exist. There's like no, there's no like any kind of violence enacted because of those identities. It's always because like, okay, someone is magical and there's like that aspect to them that like there's a part of this community that is afraid of people who have magic. And then they're also vampires, and they look really badass and kind of scary, I'm not gonna lie. Which again, I wasn't anticipating. Hey, Austin. Remake Studios. Haven't gotten to wind of it yet. Okay, I can't. I'm not. Jason read the first issues of When, heard volume 2 of it will be for more mature readers than the first volume. That makes sense. Where the story ends up leading, it gets darker. Which I appreciated, but if you were a younger reader, depending on your age and depending on who I would assume your parents are and what they let you read or watch, it might be a little bit too, like there was like violence in it that felt a little bit more gruesome for maybe a kid's comic, but I feel like I have no frame of reference for whether or not it would be good for kids. So I'm laughing. I know that your ass is laughing and laughing at your own joke. Oh my God. I love, if you guys have more puns, actually, come send them my way. I wanna show them. Aman, there we go. I like to hate the vampires in the book. Oh, they're awful characters. They're like the worst kind of creatures. And they look really, let me see if I could pull up a panel of how they look. I think the character designs are really cool too. I think they did a really great job of not making it feel like too much of like, okay, I've seen all of the iterations of vampires. It felt a little bit original. Let's see. That is like the main bad bitch vampire. Which she sucks a lot. But I think the art of it is really, really good. Let's see. Aman. It's really more for the YA crowd, but I know my daughter is mature enough to handle this book. That's awesome. I feel like when I was younger, I was reading books that were meant for older people. And if your daughter can handle it, then like she has a really awesome comic to read. Whack comics so over vampires. I get that. I mean, I feel like they've been done over and over again. I will say, like, when they introduced vampires into Wynn, I was a little surprised just because it felt like all of the other creatures they brought up felt a bit more original in the way, but I felt like the way that they drew them and then how their like creation story felt a little bit new. So if you give Wind a try, maybe you won't be so like, annoyed that they're using vampires. Yeah, so those are the ones that I'm loving right now. I also does anyone like Gwenpool? I went to my comic shop and like just found some issues and picked them up. I've never read Deadpool and I've never read Gwenpool. Drop in the comments if you've read her. Don't know much about her. But I picked up Gwenpool Strikes Back. It was fun. It was like a War Comics sounds interesting. It's Jason Gwenpool's the shit. It's fun. It's super funny. I mean, they kind of gave a bit of her background in Gwenpool Strikes Back, and she's constantly breaking the fourth wall, which I guess is also Deadpool's thing. And in Gwenpool Strikes Back, she's trying to get superpowers because she wants to stay in the Marvel universe and she wants to fight and just be important. And she wants her series to continue. So it's really interesting. You're reading it. And even, what was it? So issue 2, she's kissing Reed on the cover. And like half of the comic is actually her being like, sex sells. I need a badass cover. I need to find like one of the couples that are married and I need to like bang them. And it's like reading it. So, and it's just really, really funny. And good. I want to see if there's a trade paperback because I don't think I'll pick up like all of the single issues. They were just there and they were on sale. So I picked them up. Jason, you described it perfectly. She's fun. Yeah, I think if you want something like goofy and sarcastic and witty, pick her up. I really enjoy her. Austin, I may read When quickly. It seems quite popular. Do it. I highly recommend it. I feel like, if you like things that have like fantasy elements to it, and maybe on the surface feel a little bit lighter, but are talking about some deeper concepts, then definitely recommend it. What book? So Gwenpool Strikes Back is the one the first Gwenpool that I started with. Oh, and so in the first issue, you see that she's unmasking Spider-Man. It's like all of her covers. she's like part of like the covers that are shown, she's purposely trying to make it happen in the comic so that way it's more appealing for the readers. So she's like, oh, I accidentally unmasked Spider-Man in front of all of the people, which I thought was hilarious. And then she teams up with Deadpool as well in issue 2, which I've never read Deadpool. Is anyone a fan of him? Is there any like runs that you would recommend if I wanted to get into it? Just because Gwenpool intrigued me, so I feel like Deadpool might be something to look into. But yeah, I'm really, these are the ones I've been reading. I feel like I'm super behind. I don't know if anyone else, well, a few of you have mentioned that you're behind on comics, but I definitely need to catch up. Like I have Harleen on the shelf. I read half of it. It's fantastic. I need to pick it back up. I still haven't finished the run of Marauders. What else am I reading? I'm reading Miss Marvel for a book club. There's like all of the things. So yeah, that's kind of all I have for you this morning. Is there any comics that I should add to my recommended list from any of y'all? I feel like you guys have been dropping them in the comics kind of throughout. I need to start Gideon Falls, and let's see what else was there. I need to get into Andrea Sorrentino for sure. Legion of Comics. Harleen is really good. The slow descent into madness is mapped out perfectly in it. I would agree. Again, haven't gotten to the end, but it's brilliant writing and the art is astounding. I also feel like that's another comic where the paneling is a little bit more original and it feels different. Austin, nice house on the lake. Yes, I read the first issue. I need to get back into it. I wonder if it's in trade paperback, because again, I'm running out of room. I have my long boxes. I need to go buy some more. Whack Comics, what got you into comics? So there was this little antique store, or I don't know if it was like antique, but nostalgia store that was about a couple blocks from my house called Yesterday's. And they would have these comics, like old school comics. I don't even remember, like Sergeant something. I don't even remember the names. Archie comics and some other ones. And they were beat up. They were like pages torn, or like the covers were kind of like breaking off, and they would sell them for 50 cents or $1. And so my aunt would watch me when I was younger, and we would go for a walk almost like every day, and she would like let me get one comic or maybe two, and I would just like consistently go and pick them. And so my dad still has like this long box at his house, which I kind of want to go pick up and just see what my comic origins were, because I remember them, but it's just like it's been so long. And I used to collect them in this long box, and I would read them, and I want to say around 9, 10, maybe even younger. And that kind of just like started, like, that's my first introduction to comics. And then I fell off. This shop closed, which is super sad. And because it was in, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Chicago, but it was in Wrigleyville, right by Wrigley Field where the Cubs Stadium plays. And they totally changed that area. And so it's like all chain restaurants and like fancy hotels and things like that. But it used to feel more like a neighborhood when I was growing up over there. And then in college, I had a friend who introduced me to Saga, the Manhattan Projects, and I also used to read manga. So I used to read Death Note and Fruits Basket. So like there was like different times in my life that I was like reading different comics, but never really got to the point where I was like collecting, constantly going into like a comic shop, or even had a pull list. And then this past year, when like COVID was like still a little bit heavier, people weren't going out, things hadn't opened up, I had never like understood Marvel or superheroes or any of that kind of stuff. And because all of the books I was picking up were like from Image or Dark Horse or Vault or Boom Studios. And I just was like, oh, I don't get into superheroes. Like I don't like that stuff. And I put on Disney Plus and I watched WandaVision and was like really into it. Really loved Scarlet Witch. Loved the fact that she felt like this complex character where they were diving into her grief and her trauma, and that was really intriguing to me. I love to see characters move through that, those kinds of like themes, and it made me want to read her comic history, and so that sent me down the rabbit hole of like Marvel comics, and I started with Scarlet Witch and Vision, and it kind of just like spiraled. And then all of a sudden I was like hitting up my local comic store all the time. And so for the past year and a half, I've really been like broadening my horizons with superheroes and Marvel, even getting into some DC recently because of all of y'all's recommendations. And yeah, that's kind of my comic book journey. And so now I have like 3 long boxes in my house and a little shelf up there for like trade paperbacks and omnibuses. And I've been reading for the last year and a half pretty heavily and like leaning into it. And then now I'm here. Legion, nice house is an absolute must. Good call. Jason, Saga. So I dropped off of Saga in college, like read it to a point, dropped off, and everyone keeps bringing it back up. So I'm like feeling like I need to just bite the bullet and get back into it because like I remember enjoying it. It was one of those things where I'm sure I had work in college and was just like, I'm too busy, and then stopped reading it. Black 6371 gentrifying Chicago, shake my head 100%. So shitty. My favorite diner closed down. Yesterday's closed down. Some bullshit. Deceased is a good run for DC. I'll definitely check it out. Whack Comics, that's awesome. Comic books are great. I even wrote a song about it. Okay, is the song about it on your YouTube channel? And where can I see that? Glad you're finding more comic books to read and collect. Same. I will say it's not so great for my bank account. But I think what's great so far and what I haven't gotten into is like collecting vintage comics. Like that I haven't dived too far into like the old stuff. I've done a little bit of like the Claremont run. I've read a little bit of the X-Men. But typically if I'm going to drop a lot of money on something, I have to have like an emotional connection to it. And so I don't feel like there's any comics that I want right now that I have like a huge emotional tie that I like can't just like get at my local comic store. So that's been like nice for my wallet, but I'm just like waiting. I feel like the threshold is like coming. But because I know that there's people who are like, oh, what is your grail? And I honestly don't really like even have a grail. I don't know what that would even look like for me. So I think the more that I read and dive into comic history, I'll maybe find something that I really connect with. What are some of your guys' grails? And like drop them in the chat. I'm just curious because I have like no frame of reference for that kind of stuff. Jason, read Saga. Legion of Comics. Fable is a damn good. I saw that you were reading it. I've seen that around. Isn't Fable also kind of like based on like the Brothers Grimm a little bit? Or is that like a lie? Like, am I making that up? Whack Comics, I'll link you just DM. Perfect. I can't wait. Jason, we all collect differently. That's the beauty of the hobby. Yeah, I love that there's such diversity in what people collect. And I think it's just like anything says so much about each individual. I also, outside of comics, collect books and I collect rare books. And I think that's what when I think about like what that personal emotional tie is, like I have really rare and expensive books, but I haven't gotten to that part in comics yet. And so I'm curious to see where that journey will take me. But I think it's really cool to see like, you know, people really like slabs or they like vintage or some only really read modern. Doomsday Clock, but you might need to know a bit more knowledge of other characters to read it. Is Doomsday Clock Marvel or DC, or is it another universe? Legion of Comics, Hulk 1. I saw that you picked up, I watched one of your recent videos on your trip to a comic shop and you picked up a bunch of Hulks, I believe, which I thought was really cool. But Hulk #1, that's a good grail. Whack Comics, my Grail Sweet Tooth #1, signed by Jeff Lemire. That's awesome. I loved signed comics, signed books. I'm really here for that. Chris Claremont is going to C2E2, and I'm hoping I can get his signature on some stuff. Remy Q Studios, did someone say Doomsday Clock? Okay, people, let me know what Doomsday Clock is. See, listen, on, please don't start with Doomsday Clock. All right, why should I start with Doomsday? Where do I start? Is it Doomsday as DC? Okay. I've almost completed my Hulk run. Legion, how many issues do you need left to complete your Hulk run? Or is it like you just need Hulk #1? Black 637 says Mr. Miracle by Tom King. You're not the first to recommend that. I really like Tom King. He wrote The Vision. He's writing Supergirl right now, and I fucking love Supergirl. I think it's amazing. I don't have an issue by me right now, but the art is good and the writing is really great. I'm loving it. I'm a little sad that it's a mini series. I think there's like 8 issues. I really want it to just keep going. I heard Doomsday Clock sucks, but I don't know. Legion, Doomsday Clock is where Watchmen were brought into the main DC continuity. Don't start with Doomsday. All right, there's a lot of opinions on Doomsday Clock. I love it. I will say DC is like not it feels like just a really gritty universe, which is not that's like, not to say that that's a bad thing. I think that's really cool. I haven't felt like I've really connected with the characters for too much. I mean, I love Wonder Woman, Wonder Girl, like Yara Flor a lot. I'm not a huge, just like regular Wonder Woman fan. And then Harleen is DC, but I don't think that's like in the continuity in the same way. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I feel like Marvel tends to be a little bit lighter, which like, that's just typically my preference. Though I can get into some dark shit, but like Superman's never really interested me. Neither has Batman for whatever reason. The original 1 through 6 and about 20 loose issues. You are close. I feel like there has to be so many Hulk issues. So that's awesome. Legion, you like Tom King. I knew you sounded smart. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Yeah, no, he's one of my favorite writers. I would say, again, my comic like reading repertoire is like growing. So in terms of favorite writers, I don't even feel like I have like a handle where I can rattle off like 10 or 15 writers like some people can. I just know that I love Hickman. I love Tom King, just because the things I have read by them have like blown my mind. And there's like some series that I really like, but I'm not sure I would say like that writer is like my favorite. Whack Comics, Mr. Miracle is amazing and so sad. Oh, I love some sad stuff. Love me some Tom King. Tom King can stretch out 4 really good issues into 12. I'm here for that. I want more, especially for Supergirl. I was going to pick it up. Supergirl just got done with his Rorschach. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I have issue 1 of the Rorschach. Let me know if I'm just sounding it like saying it like an idiot. How is that? Strange Adventures, I looked into. I haven't read it. It didn't like call me immediately, but if it's good, let me know. Elseworld comics and Black Labels compared to the continuity comics. The Black Label, that's like where all of that stuff is like out of continuity. I think Harleen was Black Label. I didn't like Superman until I read All-Star Superman. I'll keep that in mind. If there are like specific runs of some DC characters like Batman or Superman that you're like, okay, if you don't really like them, but you should read, let me know. Cause I'm willing to like always try. All-Star is great. You should read PKJ's current run. Lee, so good. Have you guys also Nightwing, the current, like I think it's Tom Taylor. who's writing it. I read the Nightwing 78, I think, because Justin from No Good Comics recommended it. Really loved it. I'm going to wait for a trade paperback just because, again, I'm trying to like cut back on the single issues I'm constantly buying. But sounds like you should explore more indie titles too. Yeah, definitely. I feel like I started with like only reading indie, and now I've moved into a space where I'm reading more Marvel. But I feel like I need to like bring it back a little bit. Say it like Rorschach. Okay, there we go. Thank you. You should immediately read Watchmen. Okay, I have not looked into it, but I've heard great things, and that has been on something that I'm willing to read. I've never watched any of the films. I'm not sure if anyone likes the films or if it's a good like adaptation. I did like Superman until I saw Man of Steel. I know that's a sensitive subject. Did people like Man of Steel or did not like it? Why is that a sensitive subject? Nightwing is so good. Watchmen is a must. Tom Taylor does not miss. What are your favorite Tom Taylor comics? Because I really liked Nightwing. Nightwing and Swamp Thing are DC's best titles. Interesting. I haven't heard anything about Swamp Thing. Oh man, you're going to summon Justin in here. You said Nightwing. It's good. I'm going to wait for because I looked at my local comic shop and they didn't have like some of the issues. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait. It's a sign to wait for the trade paperback. Nightwing is amazing though. Tom Taylor's onto something. Those are good. Bit there on the level. You didn't like Man of Steel. Okay. Read the book, then watch the movie. It's a very good adaptation. Oh, you didn't like... Okay, there we go. You didn't like Superman until you saw Man of Steel. Now you like Superman. Tom Taylor, all-new Wolverine. Oh, interesting. If you like Nightwing, I highly recommend... Okay, so I am actually... They're coming out with like a paperback collection of the whole Matt Fraction Hawkeye run, and I've already pre-ordered it from my local comic shop because I purchased the omnibus on eBay because I was really excited for Hawkeye and the new Disney Plus show, and then the seller emailed me that they actually didn't have it, which was like super sad. But then I saw that they're coming out with a way cheaper than what I was going to pay for collected paperback, and so I think it comes out in November. Tom Taylor's Earth 2 run was legendary. He's already proven himself after 3 issues on Son of Kal-El. Earth 2. I'm gonna go back through this chat and just write everything down. I second whack. All new Wolverine is amazing. I'll have to check that out, especially because obviously Wolverine is X-Men. I'm always here for it. These are some awesome recommendations. Okay, so Tom Taylor is like another one who I obviously see that everyone really likes. I feel like Tom Taylor's name, Jeff Lemire, and Donny Cates are like 3 writers I'm constantly hearing about that I feel like need to read because I've never read like Sweet Tooth or anything like that. I think because I will say sometimes I'm that person that's like, oh, the art doesn't like captivate me right away, so I might not read it. And I felt like Sweet Tooth, the art wasn't like my favorite. James Tiernan is another fantastic writer, except his Batman is hot garbage. So I was just earlier, Taylor, you missed it. I was talking about Wind, and he wrote that, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. So definitely agree with you that he's a fantastic writer, at least from that series the one series I've read. Jason, all new Wolverine is with Laura Kinney, by the way, not the OG Logan Wolvie. Think you'll love it. Yeah, I know that they switched it to Laura Kinney. There's like, I feel like I'm in this place where I know bits and pieces of what is to come in these like future lines, and then I'm trying to like stay away from reading too deeply into it and spoiling it, because I feel like when I went in, especially with like House of X, Power of X, I knew not shit. My mind was like, what? This is fucking awesome. And so I'm trying to keep that like distance and space from knowing too much or about what changes, because I love the element of surprise. We can all agree Sandman is beautiful. Death is the best character. Whack Comics, I love Lemire's art, but I know it's not for everyone. I have one of his panels on my arm. What? That's so cool, though. Okay, that's awesome. Also for Sandman, Neil Gaiman is just a superstar. I haven't read his comics. I've read his books. I also met him when I was out in London at this book launch event, and he's like the nicest person. So that's really cool. Taylor, I love Lemire's art. The Underwater Welder is an underrated classic by him. Oh, I've never heard of that. I feel like I always hear like Sweet Tooth. Maze Book is new, which is by him. And Wind. House at the End of the Lake is by Neil Gaiman. Ooh, I feel like there's so much I haven't heard of. I love Sandman. Been binging along with the audiobook. I have not picked up Sandman. I feel like Sandman feels a little daunting because at least when I've gone into the comic shops, the universe seems so big and there's been so many. It seems like the run is incredibly long, or there's different runs within the universe. Is that true, or am I making that up in my head? It's just what the impression I've gotten is that it's a really it just feels really daunting to start, because a few comics where I'm like, oh, it's interesting. Even with Saga, I feel like it's a little daunting because it's like they're already so far deep into the series. The initial Sandman run is 75 issues. Yep. Okay, so I'm not just like making that up. I feel like I need to really figure out what I'm going to get through first before I start tackling these like really large series. You can pretty much safely ignore the rest of the universe. Is that just because it's not as good as the like 75 issue run of Sandman, or it just doesn't like have like as much of an impact in terms of like that storyline? 10 volumes. That's intense. But not, I mean, I feel like if it went on for that long and it's still, I see that there's like new Sandman titles coming out, that it's really beloved. I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about it, but Taylor, the rest of the Sandman universe 1 isn't as good as 2 and has different creators. All right, that's good to know. I will maybe eventually get to it. I hope I mean, again, it's one of those things where I feel like there's so many good comics coming out and there's so many good comics that have been out that there's just so much to get to. And I feel like one of the series that's pretty long and ongoing that I read, I have volume 1 of. Has anyone read Rat Queens? Because I really fucking love that comic. And I haven't talked about it on here because I've read it years ago. And for Christmas last year, my dad got me like the deluxe volume 1, and I need to jump back into it. And I think that's like one of the longer series that I'm going to get into, but I really love it. I don't know if it's on anyone's radar because I haven't seen anyone talk about it. So I feel a little alone in that one. Whack Comics. I thought it was more than 75 issues. I'm going to get it now. 75 feels easy after the 144 issues of Invincible. Wow, I can't talk. I actually need to like just drink my coffee. That's probably why. Holy shit, what? Taylor, Rat Queens is a lot of fun, but the artist is an abusive piece of shit. What? God damn it. Why do people have to suck? And then you just don't want to support their shit. That's shitty. Well, I guess this might be the end of my relationship with Rat Queens. I'm one of those people where, like, if you've like are reading or listening to something and you have no idea that that person is like really shitty, has done some like awful things, then like, right, you didn't know, and that's totally fine. But once you know, you have the choice, which like, I don't demonize anyone if you make the choice to like continue reading something. And for me, like, why would I want to support someone shitty when obviously we can even see from this chat, there's like awesome people writing really dope shit. So, God damn it. He chucked his wife down the stairs during an argument. God damn. Well, he is a piece of shit. I'm going to look into that a little bit more too. Justin V did a show on Rat Queens, if I recall, recently. It's fun. God damn. So mad. Well, that's okay. It's not like I don't have other things to read, as we can tell. Well, it's 11:30. We've been on here for an hour. I think I am going to call it. I want to say thank you to everyone who's like showed up for this live. If you're watching the replay, thanks for watching and supporting. This has been tons of fun. I absolutely love just doing these lives. Like I need to do some more like actual like recorded reviews, but the lives are so much fun because I get to talk with all of you, and it's been so fun chatting with everyone in the community. So thanks so much. And also thank you in general, because it's known at this point that I'm really new to comics, and the knowledge that all of you have and the recommendations that you give have really turned me on to some really cool shit. And so it's really fun just expanding what I'm reading because of everything that you guys are, throwing out there. So thanks. Hey, have a good rest of your weekend, guys. Bye.